This podcast is dedicated to the celebration and preservation of the working Australian Shepherd. Your Aussie is descended from a proud and amazing lineage of hard-working ranch dogs, identified and cultivated primarily in the Wild West. Contrary to the breed name, the Australian Shepherd is actually an American breed success story. Only in America can a blue-eyed, scruffy dog rise from the dust of the American ranch to become one of the most popular breeds in the world today. The Aussie's beauty, brains, and incredible work ethic and almost empathic connection with their human charges make them unforgettable and pivotal members of the family. My goal is to help you understand this amazing breed, learn more about their heritage and their physical and mental needs so that together we can preserve the working Aussie by encouraging better breeding and better vetting of future Aussie owners, ultimately keeping Aussies with their families and out of shelters. Welcome to the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. Hey, Australian Shepherd Nation, it's Jackie Tinker here. I have a really cool guest today. We're going to be talking to Michelle Coleman, and I'm going to read her bio, and then we're going to get into a great interview. Michelle Coleman is a true Southern girl hailing from West Tennessee, but has happily settled in the beautiful Flint Hills of Northeast Kansas. Michelle fell in love with trails and trail racing because it's kinder to her body, and most trail race directors allow her Australian Shepherd running partner, Stella, to accompany her. She especially enjoys hitting up the trails around Clinton Lake or Waco in Kansas City, with Stella out in front and leading the way. Michelle puts into action her belief that runners should not limit themselves to just training with their four-legged partners, but should also race with them as well, because it's loads of fun. Michelle divides her work time between basic cancer research at Kansas State University and being an office manager for her husband's business, Coleman Electric. Along with her wonderfully supportive husband, Tony, and their active red-headed 7-year-old son, Andrew, Michelle shares her life with 3 red Australian Shepherds, Stella, Deuce, and Boom. In her spare time, she coaches Girls on the Run and Andrew's baseball, soccer, and track teams. Michelle enjoys sharing her running experiences running and racing with her Aussies at her blog, Running with Reds. Welcome, Michelle. I'm so glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be on here. I love the podcast format. I think it's an amazing way to get information out there, and I'm just so pleased that we met and are able to do this.
Well, thanks for stepping up. Michelle actually approached me about this because I've heard of trail running and I've done a triathlon myself. I'm not a runner now because I have a foot issue, but running with dogs is awesome, and so we want to talk about that too. So how did you get into trail running?
Well, I got into running because of an Australian Shepherd. So we fostered for Australian Shepherd Rescue for years and years, and we got this dog into the program that was just so high drive and so high energy. And I did dog agility with her. I taught her tricks. I did basic obedience, and she was just still bouncing off the walls. And so I decided we have like a concrete track around our recreation complex. It's close to a mile. It kind of drives my OCD nuts because it's not quite a mile, but it's close to a mile. And so we just would go out there, and, this was before iPhones and apps. And, I had no clue how far we were going, but we would just walk and run. And then when she acted, tired, then we would go home. And I think we were doing about 3 or 4 miles at a time of walking and running. And that's kind of how I got bitten by the bug of running. And I decided, again, at that time, I had no way to kind of track how far I was going. So I thought, well, I want to do a 5K, because then that way I know exactly how far I ran. And I found the great app called Couch to 5K online. I didn't have a smartphone at the time, so I actually took a sticky note, wrote the walk run intervals, and had a stopwatch. And I would go out and just do that, the walk run intervals, and time it with a stopwatch. And then I ran my first 5K, and the rest is history. I've run everywhere from a 5K, 1 miler, all the way up to a 50 miler. And it just, the whole experience is so much more enjoyable with a 4-legged running partner. So, yeah.
I can imagine that because running is, to me, it's kind of boring. So I imagine you listen to a lot of podcasts though while you're running.
I do, and that is one of the reasons why I really, really love the podcast medium. Um, So, yeah, one of my favorite things to do on a long run is listen to a podcast. It just kind of takes your mind off of what you're doing. I don't like to listen to music because I like to be able to hear Stella or Boom, whoever I'm running with at the time. And
Hmm.
when I do podcasts, I can still hear her. I wear special headphones that don't go in your ear. They are bone conductive. They're called aftershocks. And so when I'm listening to a podcast, I can
Hmm.
hear her breathing. I can hear her footfall. Because sometimes she'll tuck in behind me when we're doing like super long runs, and I can't physically see her. So I need to be able to hear her. So yeah, that's why I like podcasts. They're not quite so loud and obnoxious, and there's so many great subjects out there now that you can listen to.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
world is booming. Every time I turn around, a new person is
Hmm.
starting a podcast. So it's really fun, and it's a great way to communicate without having the video aspect and all that
Yeah.
production that goes with
Yeah.
that
No, I
too.
love it.
So
It's my favorite medium.
I think it's fun. Yeah, and you can listen while you're
Yes.
driving
Yes.
too.
When your
So
child is in the back
it's safer.
playing video games and listening to annoying cartoons, it's great to just put the headphones on and just
Yeah,
kind of, yeah, think about a podcast instead of cartoons.
tune it out. Uh, oh yes, yeah. Um, so you had the first Australian Shepherd that
Mhm.
got you into running. When did you run your first ultra marathon then?
So, there's a lot of debate about what an ultra actually is. So the purists say that an ultra is 50 miles or more. So technically, I just did my first ultra, but the non-purists will say that anything over a marathon, anything over 26.2 is considered an ultra. So like, there's a big joke that the Route 66 marathon in Tulsa actually has an ultra component because you can run like 26.5 miles or something. So, I've been doing them for a few years, mainly because I had a lot of injuries. I was doing a lot of road races. A lot of road races don't allow your dogs to be there. And I understand why.
Hmm.
It's an insurance issue. There's very few road races around here that allow dogs. And, I get it. But most, if not all of your trail events allow dogs. And a lot of your trail events are going to have ultra components. So that's kind of how I kind of went over to that because I was training with Stella. I've been training with her since she's was 2 and she's now 8. So, I was doing all this training with her and then I would go to the race and she wouldn't get to go. And, you get so used to having that person or that dog there and then you go to race and that's a big mental component to your run is having that other thing there. And when it's gone, it just makes your race different. And so that is really why I went over to the ultra world was because she could pretty much be with me at all races. And now there are a few, like there's a very famous ultra in Kansas that goes through a lot of ranch farmland. And, they have free range cattle and things like that. And so they really, even though your dog is on leash, want, they don't allow participants to have their dog. And I get it, and I respect that.
Hmm.
I totally respect
Yeah. Well, but it's just something about being with your dogs. They're such an encouragement and support without being judgy.
that. Yes, yes, yes. Well, and
So,
Stella views it as a job. That's one of
mhm.
the things about Stella is she's very serious Aussie. She's very serious, and when she perceives that we are working, she is on it. And so, she's gotten me through a lot of tough races because she's like, nope, we're here, we're doing this, we're going. And it helps to have, you know, when you're running by yourself, you're thinking, oh, this hurts, or oh, I'm tired, or oh, I'm thirsty. And when she's with me, I'm thinking about her. How is she doing? How's
Hmm.
her respiration? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Do I need to put more Musher Secret on her feet to keep the snow from balling up? Or, what do we need to have a water break and her stop and have water? Like, it gets your mind off of the suffering you're going through. So, and I
Yes,
say that
that's
with a
really a
smile
good
on
point.
my
Maybe,
face. It is a lot of fun, but it's hard. So
Yes, 50 miles is very
Yeah,
hard. And I saw the picture you posted or put up of you guys just finishing your 50 mile, and neither one of you looked tired at
she was
all.
not.
And I thought, well,
Well,
I ran a 5K one time and I almost died.
she
So,
pulled that entire race. Normally, she will pull for about 3 to 4 miles, and then she'll go, "Oh, okay, this is a long race. I should not be pulling." And then she'll kind of either tuck in behind me or she'll kind of find a rhythm. She pulled that entire race, and I don't know what it was about it. I don't know if it was the fact that the race was a 6.5 mile loop, so she knew that she was going to see my mom or an aid station or what, but she was just, oh my goodness, she pulled that entire race. I was shocked. I really was.
and it didn't even look like she was
Oh, she
tired in
was
the
not.
picture.
She was not. She was ready to go again. I mean, she was pulling. They were trying to take that picture of us at the finish line, and she's like pulling to go back out onto the course. And I'm like, no, we're done.
We finished.
But she,
Yeah, and that's kind of the same with my working dogs too.
yeah.
They'll go out and work and work and work, and then lay down for 5 minutes, and they're ready to go back at it again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can do a 20-mile training run or 25-mile training run, and yeah, she recharges very quickly, much more quickly than I do, for sure.
So, how often do you run?
So we run 5 days a week, and we do back-to-back long runs on the weekends. So Saturday is our longer long run, so that would be 10 miles or more. And then Sunday is usually 10 miles or less. And that's really the most important part of training for an ultra. But she does hill work, she does speed work, anything that I do, recovery runs, she does with me. So, and I think a lot of my coaches that I've had over the years they really get a good laugh out of the fact that my dog does speed work with me, but she loves it. So,
Hey, yeah, I'm sure they're up for
oh
everything.
yeah,
All these dogs are amazing.
yeah.
So, how do you go ahead and like say you have a young dog coming up,
Mhm.
right? Because she's 8,
Stella is 8. Yes, yeah. So,
and
go ahead.
your young dog is Boom.
Boom. So he was born right the day before my son, or their birthdays, or he was born on June 11th. So he's a year and what is that, like 6 7 months, 6 months right now.
Hmm.
Um, so so yeah, for young dogs, you have to be very careful. And the problem is that people get hung up on the fact that there is no research per se that says this is when you should start doing these things with your young dog. But there's a lot
Hmm.
of research in how bones develop and how growth plates develop and the role of
Hmm.
hormones and all of that. And so a lot of people get hung up on the fact that, well, there's no research study that took a bunch of puppies and went out and ran with them and said this is a bad thing or a good thing. So, the recommendation is a year. We typically wait till those growth plates close to start running with them. And we'll do an X-ray just to verify that those growth plates are closed. And then we just are very careful about slowly getting them up to speed. And there's a online program called Pooch to 5K that kind of gives you run walk intervals for your dog. I just use Couch to 5K. It's for humans, but the dogs seem to do really well with it. And it's basically that app I was talking about that I started with, except for now I have a
Hmm.
smartphone, so it tells me when to run and when to walk, and that's kind of how I get dogs up and going when they're younger.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that about waiting until the growth plates close. That's in with any dog sport.
Yes,
People are a lot more conscientious of it nowadays,
yes,
but there's a lot of research and opinions coming out about things like hip dysplasia,
yes.
saying that they're leaning towards more environmental than genetic in some of those areas because they just haven't found any genetic markers yet. In that, some people are saying it's up to 80% environmental,
Right.
and that goes along with any other injury that a dogs can have chronically. And so just being very careful. Working dogs, stock dogs, we don't, it's not a good idea to start them until after they're a year when those growth plates have closed.
Oh,
So I'm really glad that you talked about that.
yeah,
Because look, Stella's 8 years old and she's running ultras. She's obviously in very good condition and very healthy. And so it pays to take your time and do it the right
ooh,
way because then you'll have a running partner for a long time.
well, and that's why, I have a lot of people that ask me, well, where do I find my running partner? How do I find my running partner? And I steer them away from getting puppies just because as humans, we're not the most patient. I know I'm not. And so, you have this little puppy, and yeah, he runs in my backyard for 30 minutes straight. Why can't I take him for a run? You know? So that's why I try to steer people towards, getting a dog that is a year or older. Maybe if you have a specific breed, like you want an Aussie, go to Aussie Rescue. They always
Mm-hmm.
have adult dogs available. And then that way you don't have that temptation. And I did dog agility for years. And until we really knew the dangers of doing a lot of that repetitive motion in young dogs, everybody did it. Everybody jumped dogs
Mm-hmm.
full height, did contacts full height, taught them weave poles, because mentally we thought they were ready, but physically they weren't. And then I saw many of my agility friends have to go through, shoulder surgeries with their dogs, elbow surgeries, hip issues that have become chronic problems. And then we went, oh, okay, we can't do this. We can't take our young dogs and do all that repetitive motion with them. And I think we do a lot better job about educating people and understanding that now. But I came from that, so I
Mm-hmm.
had a very big understanding of how taking a young dog and doing these repetitive things like running, how it can really lead to lifelong problems, for sure.
Yes. Exactly. So, and I like the idea of, looking for an adult dog. If you're going to start out and you don't want to wait for a year to start
Yeah,
running, you want to start right away, go to a shelter, a
yeah,
rescue, and then, or go to a good breeder,
yeah,
go to a high quality
yeah,
breeder, and they usually have
yeah,
dogs. They usually have older dogs. Find a breeder from stock or dogs that actually can have the mobility and the structure and the ability,
right,
working breeders, agility breeders that have that a dog that has been bred for endurance,
exactly.
because there's a difference out there between different lines of Australian Shepherds. And not to say one is worse or better than the other, but you have to find one that fits the lifestyle you're looking for.
Exactly.
Because if you go, if you want to run ultras, you're going to need a dog with high drive, and
Right.
you're going to have to manage that drive. And like you had mentioned, your first rescue that you had, those high drive dogs, otherwise they'll eat the house
Oh,
down,
yeah.
or become behavior problems.
She is incredibly naughty, and that is why, when after I had Andrew, it just seemed like a natural fit to start running with her because she had all this pent up energy, and we weren't doing as much agility because I'd become a mom and had all that responsibility at that point. And so I had to find an outlet because she is one of those dogs that, yeah, she will tear your house down if you let her. I mean, her registered name is Western Hills Mistress of Metal, and she lives by that name. I mean, she is one of those dogs that just she is into something all the time unless you take that energy and you channel it into something. And, Boom is the same way. He has to have that energy channeled. And running just really works well for their brains and their energy levels.
Well, one of the reasons I put this podcast together is for people who have Aussies and want to do something with their Aussies, and also people who are thinking about getting Aussies. Because Australian Shepherds were born out of a working breed. They were
Right.
born to work all day long, every day in terrible conditions. So they had to have high drive.
Mhm.
They had to have lots of endurance and have lots of things to do. Besides that, they're really smart. And if they're not stimulated properly, if they're not enriched properly, they're going to drive you
Oh,
crazy,
yeah.
and they'll end up in a shelter. They'll end up being bitey or aggressive or having other behavior problems if we don't use their energy up and put them to work. So
Right.
if you're thinking about getting an Australian Shepherd, they're cute and fuzzy and hard to walk away from,
Oh, yeah.
but they're really high drive dogs.
Yeah.
And there are some lines people will say, "Oh, my Aussie just sits around the couch potato." Sometimes after they're older, they will settle down, but
Yeah.
they still, they were born to work. So find a line of dogs that meets your lifestyle. That's for sure on that.
Right.
So, do you have any good, cool stories about maybe something that happened in a race or some really great memory
Oh,
that you
yeah.
want to share with us?
Well, we always do this race called the Snake, and it's a 10-mile run. It's done out at Clinton Lake in Lawrence, and it's in the middle of the summer, but they let people that run with their dogs go extra early so it's not too hot. And there's lots of water. It's out by the lake, so the dogs can get in the water. And so this year we had in Kansas, we had an amazing amount of rain. And so a lot of the trail was flooded, the lake flooded up. A lot of the trails actually, they're just now recovering because of all the flooding. It's crazy
Mm,
for rain. And so we had quite a few very deep water crossings. And one of the crossings was called Mud Creek, and they had put a rope across it. And so we get to it, and we don't have a lot of opportunities to swim dogs out here. There's just not. We have a lot of problems with the blue-green algae and in a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
waterways, and so we just don't have a lot of opportunities to practice swimming. And so you just assume, oh, they'll get in the water, whatever. So I proceeded to get into the water. The photographer for the race was actually standing in the middle of the water, waist deep, taking pictures. So he photographed all of this. It's hilarious. And Stella decided that she was going to find a way around going into the water. And so she ran up and down and tried to get around, and she couldn't figure it out. And I thought, well, I'll go ahead and cross the water, and she'll come, right? She's very mom driven. She loves being with mom. Well, that just freaked her out. So she takes off going the other way down the trail. And so now we're all kind of like screaming, Stella, just like the movie Stella. Everybody loves doing that. And so, we're screaming, Stella. And so she finally comes back and she finally jumps into the water and then starts swimming straight at the photographer. So I'm screaming, John, get out of the way. She's going to, jump on your camera. She's going to jump on your head. And he just stood there and she swam right around him and went up. But yeah, she has a thing about water. It's not her favorite. We've had another trail race where she had to we had to cross a river, and she about drowned me in that instance as well. She's just not a fan. So
Well, that's a good skill to start training.
yeah,
If somebody's going to start doing this, hey, teach your dog to swim. Not all dogs like to swim, and
no,
most
yeah,
of them can figure it out eventually.
yeah,
But some of them love it. And I have one that'll swim for 20, 30 minutes, just swim around chasing ducks, and he loves swimming, but my
yeah,
other ones won't get that.
yeah.
Don't like it that
She's not
much,
a fan. She's never been a fan. A lot of the other ladies we run with that have trail dogs as well, the dogs will get in the water and they'll lay down and they'll cool off their belly. And she's like, no, I don't do that. I'll get my feet wet and splash me. But yeah, I'm not laying down in that.
So when you're training, other than, that we talked a little bit about the fitness component,
Right.
what about, behavior things, behavior on the trail, that kind of stuff?
Right.
What do you need to train for?
Yeah, a lot of people will start out working on loose leash walking and things like that. The thing is, sometimes I want her to be out in front of me. Sometimes I want her to be beside me. And sometimes I want her to be behind me. So we kind of work on, getting it's okay to get out in front of me and pull. And then it's okay to get beside me. So that would be close. That would be my close command. And then sometimes I want her behind me, like when we're going through a really technical part of the trail, I want her to be behind me. So, if I fall, I don't fall on her, or if I need her to steady me, I can, kind of hold on to her. And so, just working on telling the dog it's okay. And, when we do multiple sports with our dogs, we have different gear. So like when she has her, we're just going to go for a walk leash and collar. That's different than her, we're going to go for a run. Here's your harness and, your running setup. And so she kind of knows like what behaviors are okay when we're in whatever setup, versus a tracking harness versus, her agility collar. So, so just learning when it's okay to pull, when you need to get behind me, when you need to steady me. I'll tell her easy, because
Yeah.
sometimes she does get excited, and I'll have to calm her down and just say easy, and steady. And she is really intuitive to me. I mean, she really is. She's my heart
Mhm.
dog for sure, but she just kind of reads me and she kind of knows what I need. Boom, we are doing a lot of shaping of behaviors. We're doing lots of clicker. We're working on recall because occasionally we will do trails where the dogs can be loose. So we're putting a lot of
Mhm.
value into recall and, check back in, but you can go on and run back out, so we're doing a lot with that. And I love clicker training for that. I love shaping and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and so when you were talking about harness, I want to talk back about that or talk about that some more. There are a lot of different harnesses on here, and I'm guessing you're going to be using like a tracking or a pull harness rather than an anti-pull harness because you have those
Right.
harnesses that are teaching dogs not to pull and they constrict their
Right.
shoulders and stuff like that. So what kind of harness do you use?
So I have tried a lot of harnesses out there. Aussies are hard to fit. I think
Hmm.
it's the way they're built. They're kind of built like little boxes in a way,
Yeah.
and so it's hard to find a really good, well-fitting harness. So I prefer, there's a company, and I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong. It's Hurtta. I say Herta,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a Danish or Dutch company. They do have a North American division now. I really like their padded Y harnesses simply because, like you said, there's no impediment of the shoulder. She can have full extension of her shoulder and it's not going to hit anything. A lot of the agility harnesses we use go across the shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
and I have found that that bumps that shoulder extension, and a lot of dogs will go, I can't run in this. So I prefer like the Y harnesses. Um, Clean Run has a really great padded Y harness that's like from Great Britain or something. I've tried that harness as well. That's fully padded, the girth and all the components have padding, which I like. Um, Roughwear has some amazing harnesses. I just can't find a great fit for Stella with Roughwear harnesses. Um, and yeah, there's lots of great companies. We actually have Howling Dog Alaska in Leavenworth, and you can take your dog in, and they do more of the Canicross style, which is a true running harness. And I'm doing air quotes, and you can't see it, but um, joy of podcasting, air quotes. Um, they do more of the Canicross style, which is your true running. So it's going to be a Y, it's going to be very minimal, and it's kind of going to distribute the pull all along the back.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have lines that go with it. Canicross is getting really big in the US now. It's huge in Europe. It's kind of like dog agility years and years ago. It really gained momentum in Europe and then it came over here. Well, same thing. Like they are petitioning that Canicross becomes a sport in the Olympics because it is so big over there. And it's starting to be bigger over here. But a lot of the Canicross events here, to get people into it, they're not requiring that you have the true Canicross style harnesses and leashes and stuff like that. So I like just a hands-free leash. Stunt Puppy is a great one. It's just a simple belt with a leash that has a clip on both ends so that you clip to the belt and to the dog. It's bungee, so it gives and takes, and it has what they call a traffic handle, so that if you need to kind of grab and pull your dog in a little bit, you can. And it's just simple. It's just
Yeah.
something that's very simple. And yeah, you can spend a lot of money, as within any dog sport. You can spend a lot of money getting really fancy Canicross running specific stuff, but there's a lot of stuff out there that works just as well. So
So,
yeah.
what is Canicross? I've never heard of that as a sport.
So Canicross is a sport where you run, and it's typically a 5K or 10K or less, where you run with your dog. The dog has to be out in front pulling you. And if you look it up online, it's crazy. They do mass starts where there's like 40 or 50 people starting with these crazy dogs pulling, and I would fall flat on my face if I did that. Um, it's really cool to watch. And like I said, it's really big in Europe. There is a gentleman, I think he's in Wisconsin, who's trying to start Canicross USA here. We have a chapter in Kansas. We don't host races yet because a lot of the trail races allow dogs. We're not an area that is devoid of dog friendly races. But in areas where there just are no dog friendly races, they're starting to have these Canicross events. And the biggest thing is with Canicross is that the dog has to be out in front pulling you. So
Hmm.
that's one of the big things with it, for it to be like official Canicross. And like I said, it's usually a shorter distance, and it's usually done on trail, which is fun. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
would
I
totally
can.
affect your running style to be able to run with a dog pulling you. Like, because
Yes,
I'm looking at
yes,
pictures and they're pulling their waist, like they're attached to the waist, and they're
they
pulling
are.
you. That would totally put your center of gravity in a different situation.
And they wear a type of belt. It's a Canicross belt, so it distributes the pull on you on the hip. And there is
Okay.
actually a safety tab that is required so that if you feel like your dog is going too fast for you to be able to handle, you pull the safety tab, and then that way you're not going to be pulled, face first. So yeah, it's very interesting. The problem is most of the people around here that run with our dogs, we run longer distances,
Hmm.
and so um, you know 5Ks and 10Ks are a lot of fun. but we need longer distances. So we tend to just do the dog friendly races. But I do run the Kansas Canicross chapter. We have a Facebook page. We have a Facebook group. It's slowly getting momentum. I think that it will gain more and more as time goes on and as they promote it more here in the U.S. Just like dog agility, because it is a lot of fun.
Well, and people that have participate in that are going to have to be having well-trained dogs as well, not just the running part, but
Yes,
allowing other dogs to run past them and not being leash aggressive or protective or
yes,
anything like that. And that's something with Aussies that you have to just get used to that. And since they are a herding breed and that is highly embedded in the prey drive, I mean, it's just all about prey
yes,
drive. You have to really train them to allow people to run past you, allow dogs to run past you, and to be
right.
friendly with everybody they meet, really.
Right. And that's the one good thing. Like we do a lot of I'll call them dog friendly races. And again, I'm doing air quotes and I need to quit. But the dog friendly races around here raise money for like the shelters or the rescue groups. And you get these large groups of people that want to run with their dogs, which is awesome. I think that's great. But they've never been around a ton of other people also running with their dogs.
Hmm.
And so it can be kind of chaotic at first. And I have seen some pretty big dog fights because of that, because they're getting very keyed up, they're getting very excited, and they have to let it out, and so we do support several dog friendly races in this area because we love what they're raising money for, but it can kind of be interesting. So yes, and that's where Stella, again, she views running, or I'm giving her feelings, but she views it as a job. So when she gets on the leash and ready to go, you try to pet her, she won't let you pet her. Like she's like, no, we are here for the job. Like she is in running mode. And I have other Aussies who are not quite like that. They are like, oh, all these people are here for me. So yeah, a good leave it command, you know, getting them focused on the job is also good to have because yeah, you have people running past you, especially on the trails. Single track trail, you have to pass people, and it can be very narrow. And that's why I love running with Stella, is because again, she's about the job. So she's just about getting around you. She doesn't want to be petted. She doesn't want to be loved on. She's there for the job. So she makes running with her very easy.
Yeah, that's very typical of an Aussie, especially an Aussie
Yeah.
that's closely related to their working history and genetics. They think
Yeah.
about things like that. It's the job. Let's go. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even when they're being silly and goofy, some of those Aussies can be really serious and very literal. And
Yeah.
I have one of those too. My dog Wyatt. He's just, we're here to work. Let's pay attention. He's very
Yeah.
serious and very literal as
Yeah.
well.
Yes,
So
yes, it is
cool.
very literal. Boom isn't quite like that. So I'm having to, kind of bring out the bag of tricks, of training tricks to help him, figure that out. And I think that comes with maturity as well, and also a little bit of having a female dog versus a male dog. I think there's some differences there as well. So
Huge
it's going to be
differences.
a ride with him for sure.
Huge differences. I like having boy dogs. I mostly prefer having boy dogs, but my heart dogs have all been females. So I
Hmm.
think it's very, they have a
Exactly.
different relationship with you, and I think you have to earn their respect. And they see
Yes.
themselves more as your partner or your teammate or your
Yes.
equal rather than your dog. So,
Yes.
one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, and this is a little bit off the dog subject, but you mentioned in your bio that you coach girls on the run. My daughter was 12 when she ran her first half marathon, and she did girls on the run training. And they don't train for half marathons in the group she was in, but they got her started. So I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So would you talk a little bit about that program? Because I'm in DFW, Dallas Fort Worth, and we have chapters here, and
Great.
so it's all over the country.
Yes. Girls on the Run is an amazing program. It takes a running component, but also a teaching component and puts it together. And it teaches these girls so many life skills. It's in our area, we have Girls on the Run is from third grade to fifth grade, and then Heart and Soul, which is also a Girls on the Run program, takes them through sixth grade to eighth grade, I believe, is the upper limit. And we meet twice a week and we get to know the girls. We have snacks, we talk, then we have a lesson. And the lessons are very timely. They're always updating what we're teaching, which I think is amazing. We talk about topics like words matter and social media and how putting things out there on social media is there forever. And we talk about emotions. There are good emotions, there are bad emotions, there are emotions that make you feel comfortable and uncomfortable, and it's okay to have all of those emotions. Um, we go into so many timely topics. And then after we're done doing our lesson, we warm up. We usually do a fun game that involves running that's disguised as a game. And then we go out and we run laps. And the lap goal is up to the individual girl. She doesn't have to run. She can skip, she can power walk, she can run, walk, whatever she feels like doing. And our biggest thing is just improvement. Every time we meet, try to improve on last time that we met. And I have seen girls come out of their shells. I've seen girls make new friends that they probably never would have met just seeing them at school. I have seen girls say, I never would have thought that I could run 3.1 miles, and look at me, I just ran. We just had our big 5K last weekend, and I cried so much because to see those girls meet their goals and exceed their goals, it was so much fun. I mean, I can't speak highly enough about the program, and I don't even have a girl. I got involved because my two-legged running partner is the head coach, and originally my job did not allow me to coach because you do have your lessons and your running at the end of school, so it's basically still in the school day. And I wasn't able to leave my job, but now that I work for my husband in our small business, I have that flexibility, so I'm able to run over there in the afternoons and coach. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And I laugh whenever I always get the parent that doesn't know me really well, and they're like, "Oh, which one's yours?" And I say, "All of them." All of them.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just an amazing program.
I think it's a great program. And so if you're out there and you have a daughter or a niece or a granddaughter and you think this would be good for them, check it out. Have them check it out and see, giving girls an opportunity, oh, anybody, but specifically girls right now, to work through their emotions through physicality is a positive skill that a lot of people don't have.
Right.
And you can see it by the behavior of young people that we see that are just unable to handle their emotions. So
Yeah.
I think just adding that physical component to it is so important because we all know that, as much as we may hate running or lifting or whatever it is, or cycling or whatever it is, we may hate that workout. When we're done, we feel better. And whatever crap we came into it, usually it's dealt with by the time we're done working out or exercising.
Exactly.
So I really think it's a great skill to teach, and I'm so glad you're involved in
Yeah.
it. And
And they also do a service project, which I think is really neat. They pick a part of the community that they feel like that they want to serve, and then they decide what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and then they implement that. And so, like this year, our girls wanted to cheer up some residents of an Alzheimer's unit, and they made them all kinds of little Christmas gifts, handmade things, and then took them over there and gave them to the residents, and it was just amazing. I love all parts of that, but that's probably besides actually doing the 5K and seeing them be so excited about completing the 5K. That is probably the best part too, is the service component of it, and then the fact that they plan it and they execute it, and we're just there going, okay, that sounds great, and kind of guiding them. So that's really fun too.
awesome. That's neat. So back to the running thing, something we didn't really talk about too much is kind of one of the realities of if you're in a sport and you're really active, inevitably there's going to be an injury of some sort. What kind of injuries have you been through, and have your dogs had any injuries, and how have you rehabbed
Right.
them?
So, I have a very interesting way of running. My body is put together oddly from my hips down. Um, and I run like a duck. And not only do I run like a duck, my feet go out, or a penguin, I guess. My feet go out, but I run on the outsides of my feet. So I do all kinds of weird things to my body. In fact, I have been to an orthopedic doctor who basically told me you need to hang it up. And I ran a marathon to prove him wrong. So I'm one of those people. I'm kind of stubborn like that. But
Mm,
so I have had some injuries over time. And what I have found, and I do this for my dogs as well, you know, you think of yourself as, well, I'm just a runner. I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm not an elite runner, but you're an athlete. No matter who you are or what you're doing, even if you're just going out and running a mile, you are an athlete. You need to treat yourself like an athlete. So I do regular massage therapy. We have a couple of really awesome massage therapists in our area that understand runners. They understand runners' bodies and the stress that we put on them. So I do regular massage when I'm going through a training cycle. A training cycle is just when I'm getting ready for a race. So like right now, I'm getting ready for my next 50 miler. So my training cycle started. I do regular massage. I do regular chiropractic visits. And then I just try as much as possible to get the best nutrition that I can. I'm not perfect. And then also sleep, the best amount of sleep that I can. And then for my dogs, what we do is we do regular chiropractics and massage as well. And, Stella's tough because she's very stoic. She does not, she would run 3-legged lame if I let her. So I've really got to be careful with her. I've got to go over her constantly, make sure she feels good, try to find any hot spots or any sore spots and be proactive with her because she's so stoic and she's so about the job that she would run injured if you let her. So, just really going over her, doing some stretching and some conditioning with her, having my hands on her as much as possible, and then regular chiropractic and massage for her as well. And yeah, it does cost money, but I just view it as part of the cost of reaching that goal, is going to be the massage therapy, the chiropractics, and, trying to get the best nutrition possible for both of us, really.
Yeah, I agree. I have a female like that
Oh, yeah.
she would run till she died. I mean, she would or work. She works stock, and she doesn't feel pain the way that regular dogs do, and she doesn't ever act injured. So you have to be so careful because those dogs are amazing and they have hearts as
Yeah.
big as Texas, but they
Yeah.
can be hurt, and you have to watch out for them and take care of them. So along those lines of taking care of them, one of a big problem that I see with Aussies now,
Yes.
pet Aussies, is obesity. These dogs are so fat, and you watch them on social media, and people get so offended when you say your dog needs to lose weight. But
It really
seriously,
is.
it is a health risk for them. So when I look at a dog for their weight, and I check my dogs because they work and they're active. I check this every single time I feed them to make sure that I'm feeding them enough or not, or if I have to drop down my feed levels or whatever.
Yes.
I feel their ribs every single day to see where they're at because active dogs, like athletes, like Stella, I'm sure, can gain and lose
Yes.
extremely quickly, especially if they're not feeling good or they missed a meal or they worked really, really hard one day and didn't get as much food. So I'll tell you what I look for, and then you can tell me what you look for on this. But when I feel a dog's ribs, I need to feel every rib, and there needs to be a small layer between the skin and the rib, and it's kind of hard to describe because it is a little layer of fat, but I need
Mhm.
to feel every rib carefully without digging in. Like if I just lay my hand on them, I should feel them, but they're not emaciated. You
Right.
know, they're very lean, but they're also very, and I don't, the part I think that sticks out to me is the backbone. I don't really want to feel their backbone coming through there much. There should be a little bit of cushion there, but not a lot. Like I should feel it, but it shouldn't stick out.
Right.
And it's hard with Aussies have hair, so you can't look at them and say, oh, you can look at them sometimes to see if they're really fat, but if they're
Yeah.
too lean or too, the thing is, guys, having your dogs overweight is so, so hard on them. You
Yeah.
know, a couple pounds for a dog is like 20% of their weight. So, you've got to be really careful. So, what do you look at? How do you check that kind of fitness?
So, my vet office is just like 5 minutes down the road. So, and his scale is in his waiting room. So, I will usually go down there every once a week or every couple of weeks and just pop my dog on the scale and just really watch their weight.
Mm-hmm.
I have a dog, one of my other Aussies, that has always had a super high metabolism. And so we have always battled him getting enough calories and enough fat in his diet. And Stella's a little bit like me. She's kind of an easy keeper. And so we just have to kind of watch, our calories a little bit. So I really like just going down there, getting a good weight. And again, like you said, just putting your hands on their ribs. Stella is really hard to judge because if you look at pictures of her, she has a ton of undercoat. She had a
Mm-hmm.
disease when she was 5 called IMPA, immune mediated polyarthritis. And one of the drugs that we had to use to combat it made her lose all of her hair. She was completely bald because it was a chemotherapeutic
Oh.
therapeutic drug. And so when her hair grew back, just like a cancer patient, it grew back crazy. And so she has a ton of undercoats. So I really have to put my hands on her daily to, like you said, check ribs and check condition and make sure she's got that nice tuck up and all of those things. Because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really puts a lot of stress on the body to have to carry that extra weight. And yeah, I wish someone would give me pre-portioned meals so that I would lose weight and maintain a good weight because it's hard. It's hard.
It's
So I
extremely
get
hard.
yeah, and I do feed her a very high calorically dense food that's high in fat and protein. And so I do have to kind of watch her because it does have a lot of calories. And so just as when I'm not in, peak training mode, I have to watch calories in as well because, yeah, the tendency is to put on that weight. But yeah, and I have a friend, Cindy, who runs with her dog. He's a pit mix, and he doesn't have the hair that Stella has. And so, people will look at him and they're go, "Oh, you need to feed him." No, no, he's perfect. You
Mm-hmm.
want to see those ribs. That's what you want. But people have such a skewed idea of the way that dogs should look, and it's bad. Yeah, it's really bad.
It really is. And, you're shortening the life of this dog that you love so much
Oh
because
yeah.
the heart disease, they have heart disease, they get
Oh
diabetes, they
yeah.
have the same types of obesity problems that we as people do.
They sure do.
And so it sure is miserable for them to be huffing and puffing and they get hot and dogs were meant to run and be free. They've, descended from wild dogs. And so
Yeah.
that's their nature is to be like that and to obesity is just it's a big problem and it's shortening their lifespan. So
Yeah.
what do you feed raw, do you feed
So
processed dog food?
I feed a kibble, and I've kind of tried a lot of kibble over the year. And so right now I have my guys on Purina Sport because it is
Mm-hmm.
very dense in calories. I feed them the fish version, so they get a lot of that fish oil, and it's really high in fat. And for dogs that run, that is the key. They really need that high fat diet. And I think that's
Yeah.
where a lot of people get confused because we as humans, we fuel on carbohydrates. So I, every 30 minutes, take a simple carbohydrate in the form of a waffle that has honey in it. And so people think, oh, well, so I give that to my dog. No, they need fat. They need high fat. They fuel off of fat, not carbs. And so, and they don't need as much as we do when they're working. And I get that a lot of questions about that. How do I fuel my dog? Your dog will let you
Mm-hmm.
know. They'll let you know when they're hungry. They pretty much, I mean, Stella can go 20 miles and not have anything, maybe a drink of water or something. She'll eat if I give her something, but she doesn't need it. She really doesn't need it. So yeah, that's we've been feeding that kibble for a while now. We kind of went through the whole DCM scare with the grain
Yeah.
free foods, and we just I actually just had Stella at the cardiologist. She does have a heart murmur, and we were very worried because she was on a grain free diet for many years because one of my other dogs has some food allergies, some food sensitivities, and so we went the grain free route very early on to help him with his allergies, and she just ate the same thing. And so when we found the heart murmur not too long ago, looking at something else, we very quickly got her in with a cardiologist. And I'm very happy to say that she is DCM free and that has been ruled out. She just has a heart murmur. So, and it's just a little bit of valve issue, but he said it's common in dogs her age. So, not to worry. So, I'm very, very happy about that. That was a
Yeah.
very expensive way to find out there was nothing wrong, and I'm happy to spend that money.
Exactly. Well, she's your partner, so you have
Yeah.
to take care of her.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise,
And
you'd be running alone.
yeah, and so, that's why we just had some x-rays done because of her IMPA that she had when she was 5, the disease attacks the joints. And so I wanted to make sure that all of her joints did look good, because again, she would run three-legged lame if I let her. So I wanted to see that evidence that the disease did not do anything to her joints, and that her hips and her knees and everything looked good, and she was crystal clear. And again, I'm very happy to spend that money to get, no news.
Well, exactly. And, she is 8 years old, so she's
Yeah.
getting older, and so you need to, if she's that stoic, you need to be watching out for that stuff.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah.
because it's I'm guessing, 8 years old is still a good age, and, but eventually she's going to slow down, and you just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
make sure she's slowing down without any drama from the running,
Exactly.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's so good that when you take care of them, a well-bred dog from a good breeder, and I know the breeder you got your dog from,
Yeah.
and it's Heidi, and she takes care of her dogs, and she is very
Oh, yeah.
conscientious about health testing and breeding dogs
Yeah.
that are going to improve the breed, and going to breeders like that to get your dog. Um, you're going to end up with a dog that has a long, healthy life. The odds are you're going to end up. I mean, obviously, stuff happens
Oh,
because
yeah.
genetics, we don't understand all of that, and environment and accidents and things like that. But you have a much better shot of getting a good dog that's going to last you for years and be healthy and not be expensive. Because if she did have a cardiac problem, then it would cost you even more money. And if it was genetic, it doesn't matter where it comes from, but it's going to cost you more money and more heartache, and having to make harder decisions earlier on. So I
Yeah.
will put my tout in there for, if you're going to get an Aussie from a good breeder, one that has a good reputation, and their dogs are high quality, and they're tested, and they do stuff with their dogs, and their puppy buyers do things with their dogs. So that's my little plug right there, because it sure makes a difference.
Well, and when I contacted Heidi, I actually saw, I was looking for my next puppy, and I went to Aussie Nationals at Purina, and I saw this dog working. It was Pam Smith's, one of her dogs, and I was just smitten by her dog. And so I didn't know her from Adam, so I walked up to her and I said, "My name is Michelle, and I need to know where you got your dogs from." And, we sat down and had a long talk about the good and the bad. And I contacted Heidi, and she immediately gave me references of people that had puppies to talk to, other breeders that I could talk to, as well as I filled out a very lengthy questionnaire about what I wanted to do with my dogs and what I expected out of my dogs. And it wasn't just, hey, here's how much this puppy cost. Hey, here's the check. It was very lengthy process,
Mm-hmm.
and she picked out both Deuce and Stella for us. I drove all the way down to Texas and had no clue when I got Deuce which puppy was mine, because I was trusting her as an amazing breeder to pick the puppy that best fit us. And she has been right both times. I mean, and that's what a good breeder does. They're in, like you said, they're in it to better the breed. They're not in it to make money. They're in it to
Mm-hmm.
better the gene pool and put the best product out there to better the gene pool again. And that is what she does. And, people always ask me, how do I find a good breeder? And I think you have to start out by looking at dogs that are out there and saying, this is what I like in a dog. And I think that dog would fit in my lifestyle. And then, go from there. I mean, that's how I got my last two Aussies.
Right, right, and going to a national specialty or a dog show or dog trial. I mean, if you want a working dog, you need to go where the working dogs are, because
Right,
like every breed that has a working component to it, Aussies have dogs that are bred just to work stock,
right.
and that's what I'm talking about. They have a line of dog. There's a bunch of lines of dogs that do agility really well, and then there's the conformation dogs, and they all have different strengths. And a good breeder, and one thing that you brought up that is so important, talks about the strengths and the weaknesses of their dogs, because
Yeah,
no dog is perfect. They all have holes of some sort, and those things need to be matched up with the puppy buyers. And when you go on Facebook and you're seeing somebody selling Aussie for $200-300, and they don't even know what a genetic test is, run, run, run,
yeah,
run, 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 run,
yeah,
because you're going to spend on a high quality Aussie. You're going to spend $1,000 at least, guys, and
Oh,
you're
at
going to
least.
be on a waiting list and all that stuff. But rather than rambling on about that too much, but go to a national specialty, go to a trial where those dogs are, because they're not bringing backyard dogs, backyard bred dogs that are just a puppy mill, or someone's just doing breeding dogs to make a bunch of money. They're not at that show.
No.
Those dogs are high quality. You're going to find dogs that you fall in love with. You're going to see one that just means something to you, or it has like a different personality that catches you. Then go talk to that person just like you did. That was brilliant. That was
Yeah.
a brilliant plan. And you're going to be in a much better situation. You're going to have a dog that has fewer behavior problems and fewer, health issues if you do that. So,
Yeah, one of the things that I really love, that Heidi does is, and I think a lot of breeders do this now that social media is a big thing. We have a private group where we
mhm.
communicate. We are part of a family. We're not just a consumer. She wants to know from the minute she hands you the puppy till that dog dies, that dog is being well cared for and loved, and we talk about everything, and
Yep.
so you're part of a family. And I think that's big because, anybody can have a fancy Facebook page. Anybody can have a fancy website now. I mean, websites are so easy to make. And I think people see that and they get caught up in that. And oh, well, yeah, their website was so slick. But, like you said, if that genetic testing, if that health testing isn't there, then you're just getting a ticking time bomb, and you're just rolling the dice, you know.
Right. And, yep. And
We
that
saw
genetic
it.
testing costs about $1,000 per breeding
Oh yeah,
dog. So your male is going to cost about $1,000 between doing hips and all the DNA testing, and the female is going to cost that much. So they're not in it for the money. I heard a
no,
quote one time that the best way to become a millionaire being a dog breeder is to start as a billionaire.
mhm,
So
I agree.
this is something that we do because we just love these creatures so much.
Yeah,
And so that's, and oh, the other thing that we were talking about breeders, I'll bet you Heidi, I'm sure she does. And every single one of the people that I have my dogs from, we all have those private Facebook books too,
yes,
or Facebook groups as well, and we celebrate each other's accomplishments. But
yes.
if anything ever happened where I couldn't keep one of my dogs, those breeders would take them back.
Oh yeah.
Or if something is wrong with the dog, the breeder will either buy the dog back, or they'll get another puppy to the breeder there, or the owner. They're going to take care of that person because they care so much about where these dogs go.
Oh
And
yeah.
these are not the dogs that end up in shelters.
Right.
So,
Well, and, when Phil had IMPA, these were the people that I turned to, to cry on their shoulders and
mhm.
to help me make decisions and figure out where to go. And you're not going to get that from a backyard breeder. They're going to say, "Sorry, go away." And
Mm,
it just was. I mean, one of them wanted to start up a GoFundMe page for me because it was so expensive what all we went through. And I was like,
mm,
I really appreciate that. I don't need it right now. I'm going to get a loan, at the bank, but thank you. But that's what a good breeder and a good community of puppy buyers can do for you. They're there for you.
yeah,
They let you cry on their shoulder, and I couldn't have made it through that experience without them. I mean, it
yeah.
was really good to have them in my corner.
Gosh, and you meet new friends. In the dog
Yeah.
world, I have so many friends. This year, I actually we decided to ditch our family, our genetic family, and we had Thanksgiving with our dog family. Some dog friends of mine were older and didn't have any plans for Thanksgiving, so we all got together with them and had the greatest Thanksgiving because they become part of your family.
Oh yeah,
So, mhm,
for
yeah.
sure.
Hey, I really, really appreciate this conversation. I'm sure we could talk for a lot longer about
Yeah,
various different dog topics, but I'm so glad you reached out to me, and I'm so glad to have met you and share. And I'm really glad to share you with my audience. So, where can people find you and learn more about what you're doing with your dog?
sure. So I blog about running with Stella, complete with pictures and videos and all of that, on my blog, and that's running with reds at blogspot.com. I try to share gear reviews. I try to share product reviews. I would love to become an ambassador for some of these dog related products. So the more people that kind of follow me and comment, the more they go, oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, she has that interest. Um, I am on Instagram, Red Aussie 3. I have a Facebook page for my blog, so I post if I see interesting articles, I will post on that, and that's Running with Reds. Um, and it's really funny because if you look at my readership of my blog, they're all from Russia, and I really didn't get it at first until one of my friends was
Oh,
Running with Reds. Hello.
yes. Hello. Well, for those of you that were not living through the 80s,
Yes, you know how to
Russia
get
was
that.
called the Red State, and so
No.
Russians were called Reds. Hmm.
I know, yeah. And then one of my friends was like, you were born in 77, come on. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. But yeah, Running with Reds, you can find me, Red Aussie 3. If you ever I have people that will just randomly send me emails, redaussie3 at gmail.com. If you ever have any questions, I love to talk to people. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about sharing running with dogs with people. Any questions, bring them. I do live Facebook videos all the time showing people stuff on my blog page. I love to talk. So yeah, I'll talk to anybody. And I do have a lot of people that contact me about IMPA. So I'm more than happy to talk about our journey through that disease and kind of how we got through it. And so I get a lot of people contact me about that on Facebook. Um, so yeah, lots of different ways to get in touch with us. Stella always does a year-end recap of all the races that she does from her perspective. People think it's really funny. So I post that up there, and I believe that post is pinned on from last year, so you can get Stella's input on the races that we did. But yeah, just reach out. I'd love to talk. If you have a gear question, if you have a training question, I'm here for you.
Well, awesome. I will put links in our podcast page on from the instinctiveaussie.com. So the instinctiveaussie.com, find this episode there, and I will post the links and all that kind of stuff for Michelle's contacts for you. And hey, we're going to have to schedule a podcast to talk about the IMPA. I have a several podcasts planned for things like that. So
Yeah. We
I would love to
actually
talk
were
to you
in
again.
K-State Vet Med does a magazine, a monthly magazine, and they actually did a big spread about Stella because it was such a unique situation. She was running these crazy races, and so a lot of the weird things that they found, we don't know if it was a hallmark of the disease or the fact that she was running such big miles. And the fact that
Mm-hmm.
we're able to rehab her and get her back on the road, most IMPA dogs don't. So it was just a really cool story, and I'm glad that we got to put it out there to kind of highlight K-State Vet Med and how awesome that they were for working with us and just the whole story. It was not fun to go through, but I'm really glad that we successfully made it through, and I'm happy that we've helped others make it through the journey with their dogs.
Oh, me too. I appreciate that. So we'll get you back on the schedule and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, everyone. Check us out at the Instinctive Australian Shepherd on Facebook and the instinctiveaussie.com, and subscribe to our podcast. Give us some feedback. Give us some ratings on iTunes or Apple Podcasts now. And that helps other people find this podcast. Share the podcast with your friends, and we will see you down the road. Hey, and that's the show today. Thanks for joining me. I hope you really enjoyed it and got to learn something about this amazing breed, the Australian Shepherd. Join us on Facebook. We have a private group called the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. Join the group and join the conversation there. You can also find us online at theinstinctiveaussie.com. That's where you'll find all the show notes, the links to anything we talked about this show, and all of our past episodes. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you find your favorite podcasts, and that way you'll be the first ones to know as soon as an episode is uploaded. All right, everyone, I'll see you down the road.